Story 1. My cousin said this in her speech at her mom and my aunt's wedding. It actually really hurt my aunt and her new husband. They had already been in a relationship for 20 years when they got married. He is a really nice guy, and they are madly in love. He treats her well. My cousin has never accepted him. He has never done anything wrong. It's for shallow reasons. He isn't good-looking enough. He doesn't have enough money. He's alternative, artistic, and a bit of a hippie, but he's also kind and caring. Her saying that just reinforced that it doesn't matter how long they've been together, what he does, she doesn't accept him. I went over immediately afterward and said, "Welcome to the family," and gave him a big hug. He later told me that meant a lot to him after what my cousin had said. Story 2. I had a sailing buddy with a boat. One day we were going sailing with his daughter and her new boyfriend. He was going to give him the speech that he collected guns and was going to practice cleaning one while giving the speech for extra measure. He chose a Mauser M43, which is never loaded, normally. He points at the ground, clears the chamber, there's a big boom, and he blows a softball-sized hole in his bedroom floor. Cement dust is everywhere. We did not go sailing that day. Story 3. There's a classic story where some girl's dad gets a guy alone, has him sit down at opposing sides of a table, and the dad puts a gun down on the table without a word. Confused, the original poster then puts his gun on the table too. Story 4. I had a sibling say this to a potential boyfriend when he met him. It was 10 years ago, and I was in my mid-30s. It's not cute or protective to say things like that to someone. I still get embarrassed thinking about it. Story 5. I sort of got this from my wife's uncle when we first got engaged. We announced on Facebook, and I got a message from some guy I didn't recognize from the States. We live up here north of the wall, and showed it to her. "Oh yeah, that's my uncle." With a face kind of like an embarrassed shrug. He introduced himself as name, United States Marine Corps, and asked some pretty intimidating sounding questions. He's pretty crazy, posts a lot about being in the Corps, Semper Fidelis and all that, but it turns out, according to my wife, he got psychologically discharged after about a month or something because he was too crazy for the Marines. I guess just let your date or whatever know and see how they respond. Her response was basically an embarrassed eye roll. Now we laugh whenever he posts some psychotic stuff on Facebook, and I do the Ralph Wiggum chuckle and it makes her giggle. Story 6. I am not violent, and I hope you are not either. Why would you think I would hurt her? What is behind this? I was a devastatingly annoying youth. I am told you grow out of that. Still waiting for that part. Story 7. As a woman, I would be mortified if a family member said that to someone I am seeing. But, funny enough, I would bet that my abusive ex says that to people his daughter introduces him to. Story 8. I think the best response is just calm confidence. You don't have to worry about that. Listen, she is my priority. We are on the same side, same page. I don't mean to. My dad wanted to have that conversation with the significant other of one of my sisters. The rest of us were like, "Dad, your daughter carries a rifle and fights coyotes for a living. He's going to be more intimidated by her than you." Story 9. It's pretty emotionally immature for anyone who says it. Honestly, probably just nod and ignore them. The people who are hurting others aren't dissuaded by this silliness. Story 10. My brother-in-law said something similar to me before my wife and I got married. We had been together 6 years at that point, and he had zero reason to think badly of me, so it really upset me. I just looked him straight in the eyes and responded with a calm but very stern, "Don't you ever threaten me again." He apologized and walked off. Not sure I'd recommend trying that approach, but luckily it all worked out in the end. We have been married 10 years now, and I consider him a close friend. Story 11. It feels archaic. The whole dad reminding new boyfriend he has a shotgun talk seems like something from when women were treated as property to be traded between families, not people. It's even worse as a dad or a daughter when people say you will have to have that talk with all her boyfriends that come knocking when she's 2. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Story 12. Look, man, most young relationships do not work out, and adults know that. Let the old man puff up his chest and feel like a protector for a minute. You are having a relationship with his daughter. I have 7 sisters and have never interfered with their dating until one of them actually got physically abused. Then I was fully prepared to go to prison for a long time, and I put a stop to it. Story 13. I am 30. I've had enough nonsense in my life. If I ever heard that from my date's family or friends, I am going to stop seeing them. We are grown up. Stop with that nonsense. Story 14. Got hit with a variation of that in our first year. Slightly drunk father and uncle at the end of the Christmas dinner said, "Remember, what you do to my daughter, you're doing it to me too." To which I answered, "All right, gentlemen, what do we start with?" The look on their faces as the connotation sank in was priceless. Story 15. I've actually talked with someone who made the "I'll be cleaning my guns when he pulls up" joke. I said, "You do realize that would likely chase away any decent guy, while not at all deterring a complete scumbag, don't you?" Story 16. The first time an ex-friend met my husband, she said, "If you hurt her, I'll carve your eyes out with a rusty spoon." And he just laughed and said, "Okay." I'm no longer friends with her for many other reasons, and we've been together for over 13 years. From a woman's point of view, well, my point of view, people who say those things and mean it aren't great to have around anyway and don't matter. She's the only person who said that to him, and she's the only one that isn't in my life over a decade later. Story 17. Threatening the boyfriend is absolutely the worst way to keep your daughter, or anyone's daughter, safe. In fact, it increases the chance of your daughter being in an abusive relationship. Your daughter doesn't want the boyfriend or ex to be harmed, and doesn't want dad to go to jail. She will never disclose abuse or warning signs because she doesn't want dad to go to jail. What to do to keep your daughter safe? 1. Model good communication, financial discussions, and respect for your wife or partner in your relationship. Ensure your daughter has accurate sex education and understanding of birth control, sexually transmitted diseases, and consent, even if you are a Mormon or fundamentalist. The United Church of Christ has a fact-based sex education program that covers all of this. You don't want your daughter being lied to by a manipulative male. She needs to know that she can withdraw consent at any time, and that failure to ask for or respect consent is concerning. Respect bodily autonomy in the home. Don't force your child to hug someone they are uncomfortable with. Ensure your daughter has financial autonomy and understands finances, so she is confident that she can support herself. Make sure your daughter understands that abusers will try subtle tactics to damage the relationship between their victim and the victim's friends and family. If a person is lying or exhibiting multiple concerning behaviors over time, the solution is not couples counseling but to end that relationship. You can bring up different relationship-related topics at different times. For example, if a politician makes a comment about women without children, would that be a warning sign for someone dating that person? Would a person who respects women say that? What keeps your daughter safe is her belief in herself and knowing that she can come to you with any issue at any time. You are always there for her. Story 18. I had a girlfriend's dad grab the neckline of my shirt and ask what I was doing at his house. I looked at both his arms, made eye contact, and asked, "Standing." I think he did it because it's a common thing in movies and shows. He didn't seem to know what to do with himself. Story 19. I don't know, to me it's okay for a family to be a little worried about who their family member is dating, but "if you hurt her, I'll hurt you" is a little over the top and unnecessary. Story 20. I would say something like, "Wow, here I came to meet you with nothing but good intentions." And your first response is that? Impressions go both ways, and frankly, that didn't impress me one bit. Doesn't tell me that you intend to show me any respect. Story 21. Parents, you love your daughter and would do anything to protect her, but she also needs to have the tools to make decisions on her own. When she has to make a hard decision, she won't have you or other family members to help. These teens are going to experiment. If you make threats, they'll still engage in risky behaviors and get very good at lying to you. She'll avoid talking to you about anything. She needs to know that she can come to you about anything and you'll listen. So teach her about respect, consent, situational awareness, birth control methods, condoms, self-defense, and menstrual products. Tell her you trust her to make the right choices, and no matter what happens, you'll always love her. Tell her that you won't be there when she makes these decisions. Also, discuss that some decisions can affect the rest of her life, like pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. Wrap it up, give her a hug, and shake the date's hand firmly, saying, "Have fun. Be back at the agreed time, right? Bye." Story 22. I've only ever been hit with this dumb proclamation once. It was from my now wife's best friend. I told her, "You get one chance at a first impression, and you just made a really bad one." She was artificially sweet to me from then on, and I was cold to her. We don't see much of her these days. Story 23. I would be livid if my family or friends said that to a man I was seeing. Firstly, threatening someone with physical violence for something there is no reason to think they would do is uncivil and unnecessarily hostile behavior. Secondly, it shows complete disregard for my ability to make good judgment calls. Sure, if the man laid hands on me, he may have a beating coming, but if he's just a difficult person, I'll dump him. Physical violence would be uncalled for and grossly excessive. The friends and family of a partner are people who are going to be in your life. I wouldn't blame a man if he didn't want to be in a relationship where he's exposed to that and would instead choose to leave while the relationship is young rather than letting it continue. Story 24. My long-ago ex, had told me about how verbally abusive her father had been to her when she was a kid and teenager. One day, he and I were talking on a park bench while my ex played with her cousins and siblings. He pulled the whole, "If you hurt her, I'll have to kill you." Without even turning my head to the man, I said, "That's fair. But also, if you ever speak to her again like you did when she was younger, you'll wake up on the bottom of the lake with just enough air in the bag around your head to figure out what's about to happen." He apologized to his daughter later that month, and I can't remember a single time he was in a room alone with me after that. So, I guess the delivery was spot on. Story 25. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Strike me down with all your hatred, and your journey to the dark side will be complete. Story 26. I am 42. If I were met with this nonsense, I would silently turn around, walk out of the door, drive off, and block her. I am a grown woman and I don't need this. This means you want me to marry you and not your daughter. Forget that. Story 27. I guess I better break up with her now because reality of relationships is that we all hurt each other sometime, and I don't want to die. Honey, sorry, but I'm not risking my life for this relationship. Goodbye. Story 28. So, hurt her feelings or leave a bruise kind of hurt. Because I've been looking to die for a while now, and this would be less shocking to my family than if I did it myself. Story 29. This happened to me when I was 17. She was also 17. I calmly told him that I had very deep, respectful, affectionate feelings for his daughter, and I felt bad that she had to live with a toxic personality that presented himself as a protector. We would soon both be adults, and maybe it was wise if we held off from dating until we graduated in a few months. She and her mother were both heartbroken, but this led to some heavy discussions between her parents about the way the father was treating people. Came out that he was having an affair and they divorced soon after. Then we were intimate. Story 30. I know people say it because they think they sound tough or funny, but it's just rude and presumptuous and cliché. I've never managed to not look annoyed. I guess they're hoping to hear my promises or something, but I'm not the obsequious type. Story 31. Every one of these posts asking something like, best comeback for when someone says something? The answer is almost always looking at the person for a split second and then ignoring them. Looking so they know you heard them and then just not even wasting breath replying will upset anybody. Story 32. It's not worth it. The kind of person who tries to make threats upon meeting someone is pretty sad and pathetic, and this is probably the entirety of their personality. This type of person tends not to be good people either. Story 33. On my wedding day in February, one of my husband's old college friends was there, and he came up after the ceremony, and I was still beaming from the excitement of being married and finally getting to meet one of my husband's oldest friends. He proceeded to essentially try to have a serious conversation during my reception party while people were dancing, right after I said my vows and promised my devotion in front of everyone. My husband thought it was kind of sweet, and he meant no harm, but personally I was quite annoyed. Story 34. Happily engaged and haven't been told this yet, but considering the amount of childhood emotional neglect and psychological trauma she has had to work through in our past 7 years together, at this point I would probably respond with something along the lines of, I wish somebody had told you that 28 years ago. Story 35. Sir, I've been married to your daughter for 8 years now. We've been together for 15 years at this point. We have 2 kids. I don't know what else you want from me. Story 36. Dad, hurt my daughter, and I'll hurt you. Boyfriend, don't worry. Sir, we already have safe words. We're using red light and green light. Daughter, safe, sane, and consensual. Daddy, story 37. All right, you kids have fun, but if you hurt her, I'll kill you. Haha. Haha, don't worry, she'll be fine. But if anyone, and I mean anyone, ever tries to harm her, I will kill them in the most painful way I can imagine. I don't just mean physically, but psychologically. I own guns, but that's just to threaten them into letting me restrain them. They'll think giving me what I want is what they need to do to live when I show up with a .45 in their face in my United Parcel Service driver costume. I'll zip tie their extended family, co-workers, and their pet hamster to lawn chairs in the kitchen, while my yard shears make their fingertips fall like autumn leaves onto the crimson linoleum. I'm getting hard just thinking about it. I mean, I'm just saying,